Boy, you take a few weeks off and everything happens. So, about a week ago, the comic book internet, well, it went into full meltdown over a single post. One rumor, one unnamed source, one sentence that sent fans, reactionary folks spiraling. And boy, do I want to talk about it. Not because I think the rumor is true, but because of what it reveals about what people are actually afraid of. And honestly, I think they're afraid of the wrong thing. The post came from Fandom Pulse on July 6th. The claim verbatim: Marvel will be phasing out their publishing to Webtoon by 2030, give or take. And then Cosmic Book News piled on with their own insider saying Disney is less interested in publishing and wants to license Marvel comics out rather than produce them in-house. And then Rob Liefeld, always looking to take a jab at Marvel. And also, you know how I have thoughts about Rob Liefeld, but he posted 2 words: believe it. And the internet did what the internet does: panic, outrage, think pieces, reaction pieces, people declaring this would be the death of comics, clickbait. And well, look, I get it. We just watched crazy things happen, like Sony announced they're killing physical game media. I mean, the vibes are bad out there right now, I'm telling you. So when a rumor like this drops into that environment, people don't stop to check the source. They just feel it. But here's the thing. I don't think Marvel is going all digital by 2030. I think the rumor stated is almost certainly wrong. But I also think the people dismissing it entirely as just grifters making stuff up are actually missing something, because the underlying signals, the things that made this rumor feel plausible enough to spread like wildfire, well, those are real. And they point to something that's actually more interesting and more complicated, and honestly more likely than Marvel just kills print. As always, I'm Chad. This is Achieving Geekvana. And today we're going to talk about what's actually happening between Disney, Marvel, and Webtoon, and why the real story isn't that Marvel is abandoning print. It's basically that Disney doesn't want to be a publisher anymore, but they still want to own the characters. And those two things, well, they're not the same. So let me start with the rumor itself. Fandom Pulse posted it July 6th. One unnamed source. No documents, no corroboration beyond Cosmic Book News chiming in with their own unnamed insider. Rob Liefeld, who formerly cut ties with Marvel after the Deadpool and Wolverine premiere snub in 2024 and has been on a year-long crusade against the company, responded with, believe it. He later elaborated that big entertainment corporations are bottom line, period, and going all in on tech for cost savings. Now, I've covered Rob Liefeld's critiques of Marvel in depth on this channel before. I said then that while his diagnosis of Marvel's problems really hold up, and that the market data backs him up, some of what he's saying comes from a man who feels kind of pushed out, and he's not really done being angry about it. So both of those things can be true at the same time. And in this case, I think the angry part is doing more work than the insider information part on behalf of Rob. Because when you actually look at what Disney and Webtoon have announced on record, the story looks completely different from what the rumor describes. Back in August 2025, Disney and Webtoon announced a multi-year deal to bring roughly 100 Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney titles to Webtoon's vertical scroll format app. In September, they expanded it, a new digital comics platform built and operated by Webtoon that would house over 35,000 titles from Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, Disney, and 20th Century Studios. The deal finalized in January 2026, and well, Disney bought 2% equity stake in Webtoon Entertainment. 2%. That's not an acquisition, not a merger. It's just 2%. I mean, that's a distribution experiment, not really a corporate pivot. If Disney was planning to kill print publishing and move everything to Webtoon by 2030, they'd be buying a whole lot more than 2% of that company. Okay, so if all the digital by 2030 claim doesn't hold up, then what about the other part of the rumor? The part where Disney is less interested in publishing and wants to license Marvel characters to outside publishers instead of producing the books in house. Because that part, and well, I want to be careful here, that part I actually think has legs. And it's not just because of an unnamed insider, it's because we can see it happening already, not just at Marvel, across the entire industry. X-Men Elsewhere by John Byrne returned to the characters they helped make famous. That's not being published by Marvel. It's been licensed by Marvel to the publisher Abrams Comic Arts under a license. Fantastic Four Full Circle by Alex Ross, same deal, licensed, Marvel Arts line. The precedent is already on the shelf for this licensing approach. But let me give you two more examples from outside Marvel because they show this isn't a one-off. It's a pattern within the comics industry. Archie Comics, not a Disney property, but one of the oldest publishers in the business, just licensed their entire publishing operation to Oni Press. They still own the characters, they still control the IP, they're just not the ones printing the books anymore. And Valiant Entertainment, a company that built its identity around a shared superhero universe as well, licensed their entire publishing line to Alien Books in 2023. And Valiant owns the IP. Alien Books makes the comics. Then in March 2025, Alien Books signed a distribution deal with IDW and Penguin Random House. That's like 3 layers deep of IP owner, publisher, distributor, all separate companies. I mean, this licensing thing is getting crazy. Anyways, so we have Archie to Oni, Valiant to Alien Books, Marvel's own going with the Abrams line. That's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. That's an industry figuring out something about the economics of publishing in 2026. Now, here's where I want to connect this to something I said months ago in my video about Disney turning Marvel into a content farm. In that video, I speculated, I was very clear it was just speculation, that Disney's trajectory could eventually lead to Marvel reducing in-house publishing and partnering with outside publishers for certain lines. And I was just connecting dots. And those dots at the time have only gotten more connected since then, especially with this new move on the part of Marvel. So let me lay out what's actually happened since I made that video. Dan Buckley, 30 years of Marvel, pushed out. David Gabriel, 23 years, the man who kept Marvel publishing in the black for 2 decades, he's gone. 3 senior editors were gone, replaced by Brad Winterbaum, a television executive, and David Abdo, a music industry brand manager from Disney Music Group. Neither of them has ever worked in comic publishing. And then C.B. Cebulski was still editor-in-chief, but he now reports to Winterbaum, the TV guy. The creative direction of Marvel Comics flows through a leadership structure where neither person at the top has a comic book background. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a second, jump ahead and say, I know the recent news that just came out that C.B. Cebulski was released. And that is another flag that I think moves us in this direction of the possibility that Marvel Comics could become a licensed product in the future. And we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about new editor-in-chief Stephen Wacker in a future video. So stay tuned. We will get to that one here probably later this week, but we'll talk more about that then. Okay, back to the current video. Okay, these changes on the part of Marvel and Disney, they're not rumors. That's all on record. And I want you to hold that fact next to the licensing rumor for a second. Because if Disney's long-term plan was to maintain a thriving internal publishing operation, to keep producing hundreds of monthly comics in-house with all the infrastructure, distribution, and creative management that requires, would they have installed a TV executive and a music industry operator at the top of it? I don't think so. I mean, you don't staff up for a business you're committed to growing by putting people in charge who've never done that business. But if your long-term plan is to transition to a licensing model where outside publishers handle the actual production, distribution, and creative management, and then Marvel just collects the checks and maintains IP control, well, then you don't need comics people at the top. You need deal makers, you need brand managers, you need people who know how to structure licensing agreements and maximize IP value across platforms. That's exactly what a television executive and a music industry brand manager do. Okay, folks, this is the part where I want to pause and make something really clear. This is not me saying Marvel's killing comics. This is not me endorsing the panic, because here's what a licensing model could actually look like. And I don't think it's the apocalypse people are imagining. Marvel could keep their core superhero lines in-house, Amazing Spider-Man, Avengers, X-Men, because those are the IP engines feeding the movies and the Disney Plus shows. But the mid-tier books, the creator-driven projects, the experimental lines, you license those out to the publishers who actually specialize in making comics. Boom Studios, Dark Horse, Skybound, Image, publishers with deep comics credibility, with editors who know the medium, with distribution relationships that already work. Marvel still owns the characters, Marvel still controls the IP, Marvel still collects licensing fees, but someone else handles the printing and the creative management. And here's the thing that I think gets lost in every conversation about this. The direct market is not dying. ICV2 reported the direct market for comics and graphic novels grew 27% in the first 8 months of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024. 27%. The readers are out there. New readers are coming into stores. DC's Absolute line proved that when you make a great print comic, people will buy them. Absolute Batman hit double-digit printings. The Absolute Universe drove DC past Marvel as the #1 publisher for the first time this century. Print is not the problem. The format is not the problem. The problem is that Disney doesn't want to be in the publishing business anymore. Not because publishing is dying, but because publishing is small. Marvel Comics generates maybe a few $100 million a year in revenue. The MCU generates billions. I mean, when Disney's CEO looks at the spreadsheet, publishing is a rounding error, basically. It's overhead, it's infrastructure that requires specialized knowledge, specialized distribution, specialized relationships, all for a fraction of the return that a single film generates. So the question isn't, is Marvel going all digital? The question is, does Disney want to keep running a comic book publishing company? And all the signals we see, or that I can see, the leadership changes, the Webtoon deal, the licensing experiments with Abrams, the industry-wide pattern of Archie and Valiant doing exactly this, they all point in the same direction. Not towards digital only, but towards licensing, towards being asset light, towards we own the IP, someone else makes the books. That's the story, not the panic-inducing rumor that sent everyone spiraling last week, but the slower, more structural shift that's been building for months and that I've been talking about on this channel since the Content Farm video. The specific claim, Marvel to Webtoon by 2030, is almost certainly false. But the fear that made people believe it, the fear that the company that owns Marvel Comics doesn't actually care about Marvel Comics, well, that fear is real, and it's not based on a rumor. It's based on watching a television executive and a music industry brand manager get put in charge of a comic book publisher. I mean, it's based on watching 30 years of institutional knowledge get walked out the door and not be replaced, or be replaced by IP managers. It's all based on watching Marvel lose the market share crown while leadership responds by apparently focusing on a digital platform. And this is where that phrase I keep coming back to really matters. Whether a licensing model is good for comics or bad for comics, it really comes down to one thing. Who's on the other end of the deal? I mean, if it's being licensed to a Boom Studios, Oni, Dark Horse, Skybound, Image, publishers that live and breathe the medium still, that hire editors who know how to develop talent, that bet on creators and stories and not just brands, and they're empowered to make the creative decisions, that's not a gimmick. That's still creativity building fandom. That's putting the actual work of making comics back in the hands of people who chose this industry because they love it. But if it's licensed out to just another set of brand managers with a different logo on the spine, if the licensing model is just Disney outsourcing the overhead while still trying to make all of the creative decisions from Burbank, then really none of this matters. Then it's just a gimmick creating a moment. Remember, gimmicks create moments, creativity creates fandom, and right now, the people Disney is putting in charge don't look like they're on the creativity side of that equation. That's really what should worry you, not a rumor about Webtoons. Thanks so much for joining me today, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think licensing is the future, or is this just another panic cycle that'll blow over? I really want to know. I love reading your takes on all this stuff. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and share it if I earned it. And as always, stay geeky, my friends, stay geeky, and I'll see you all next time. Later.